So what you find when you sit is that eventually Michelle talked about it beautifully on the first morning, where she said, you're going along fine as a child, and then there's no question about, do you belong here or not? It's not a question that arises even in your mind as a possibility that you're just seamlessly inside of things. And then at some point, for different people, it's different times. It's usually somewhere, as she said, around adolescence. It can happen earlier or later. No, I don't think later. But you'll have some feeling of separation, feeling of pain, separation, that something's wrong, something's gone wrong. It can be a very mild feeling of just dis-ease, or it can be the whole range of, I cannot bear one more second in this retreat. Next bell, I'm out of here, I'm packing my bags, I am never coming back. That usually happens to me at least once every retreat. I'll have it might even be like in the shadow of the hawk will pass over as a viable possibility. So you'll have a feeling of the self, that's what we call the self. And in case you didn't know its attributes, I'll just give you a few of them. This is the not interwoven. So if we feel ourselves not interwoven with anything else, I'm this separate, solitary person, and I end here at my skin, then everything in the world is either for me or against me. Everything is seen as a threat, or it's seen as, not important, or it's seen as something I want to get. And a feeling of self-consciousness. This is one of the attributes of we're watching ourselves perform ourselves. We're watching ourselves do a pretty, mediocre performance of me. It's not even a great performance. So there's this feeling of watching ourselves, the feeling of something wrong, a feeling of separation. And when I first came to Zen, that was what really brought me here, was the feeling of acute separation, where I could see people, I could see all of you out there, but there was this feeling of very thick, about 6 inches plexiglass. And I just could not get through it to other people. And sometimes it wasn't there. Like if I'd go backpacking, it was not there at all. I was just in the world. So it was pretty clear that it had something to do with people, because when it wasn't there, I was backpacking, and then when I came back to town, suddenly it was there again. There was a lot of feeling of pain around that. So the feeling of separation, loneliness, isolation, suffering, the feeling of suffering. Gain, I'm in the world of gain and loss. Everything, as I said, is related to gaining or losing. Effort, tremendous feeling of effort. And also, that's sometimes what brings people to Zen, is this feeling of exhaustion, is they just cannot bear to keep up the hard work of making a me. And that's related to control. Basically the self, another word for the self is just effort. But the self is always interested in controlling circumstances, controlling inner circumstances and outer circumstances. And controlling outer circumstances is the only reason for that is to control what is arising inwardly that I can't bear. Certainty. The self loves certainty. And I'll talk more about that in a bit. The identity, I guess the identity tag too. You'll find that when you're captured by the self, I guess what would be, something that your identity tag would be something that you're always bringing up in conversation. You always sort of move the conversation towards this subject so that either you'll be able to say something that will elevate your status, and so you'll gain, or so that people will know how terrible your life was, so that you can take on, the role of the victim. Or you might be moving the conversation away from things that feel threatening, that if they knew this about me, then, so you try to move things away from there so people don't see something that you identify with some kind of shame or feeling of failure. So it's a fixed sense of who's a me. There's a repetitive quality to it too. You'll notice that that's part of the exhaustion, and I think that's something that brings people to Zen too, is that they just get tired of the same story of trouble, the same kind of trouble. At least in Zen you have a different kind of trouble. Getting enlightened. And so what you begin to see in a meditation retreat is you start to see the contours of the self. There's enough silence and space where you start to see how you get caught and the whole cascade of how you maintain the self.